People always imagine inheritance meetings as quiet, polite gatherings. Ours was a war zone disguised as a brunch. And I was right in the middle of it. The moment my brother stood up, glass raised, smile wide enough to cut the room in half, I felt the shift. The same shift I used to feel as a child right before a hurricane touched the coastline. "Everyone," he announced, voice booming, "I'm honored to say the entire estate has officially been placed under my name." The room exploded into cheers. Aunties wiping fake tears. Cousins slapping him on the back. His fiancée dazzling her ring at everyone like she'd won front row seats to destiny. But my father didn't clap. He stared down at the table, fingertips tapping. The way he always did when he was about to lie. And I didn't clap for a very different reason. I stood slowly, letting every pair of eyes swing toward me. My brother smirked. "How about you congratulate me, sis?" I smiled. A slow, unsettling, deliberate smile. Because in my suitcase, locked and resting at my feet, was the one thing none of them knew even existed. And when I spoke, my voice cut the room in half. "Dad," I said gently. "Don't you know?" Silence dropped so hard it shook the air. My father lifted his head. Not a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Only dread. My brother's smile wavered. My mother gripped the edge of the table. Because this was the moment. The exact moment the story they'd built. The story they rehearsed. The story they thought they controlled. Began to unravel thread by tiny, hidden thread. Before I opened the suitcase. Before the truth detonated. Before my brother screamed, my mother cried, and my father begged. "You need to know how we got here. Because betrayals like these don't appear suddenly. They grow. Quietly. In kitchens. In childhood bedrooms. In phone calls. In secrets people bury because they think no one will ever dig them up. So let me start over. Not with the moment of explosion. But with the match that was lit long before. My name isn't Tegan anymore, not in the retelling I'm giving you now. The names you read next are new, just as you asked. But the truth beneath them? That remains untouched. My family lived in the waterfront community of Brycewood Cove, a quiet, affluent pocket just outside Port Belton, on the southern coast. Picture perfect. Magazine-worthy. Salt in the air, sunlight on the windows, and the illusion of harmony painted over everything like thick, glossy varnish. My brother, Elias Rowan, was the son everyone orbited around. Star athlete. Golden boy. Future heir to everything, at least in the story my parents liked to tell. And me? I was Maya Rowan, the daughter who left. Quiet, observant, inconvenient. I was the shadow he stepped over without noticing. But the person who saw me, really saw me, was my grandmother, Lenora Vance. A woman whose mind was sharper at 80 than most people's at 40. A woman who'd spent her life building a portfolio of 9 rental properties across the coast. A woman who knew the truth about everyone. And hid it behind soft smiles and sweet tea. And 3 years before she died, she called me out of nowhere and said, "Maya, come home this weekend. I need to show you something before it's too late." I had no idea that call was the first domino. The call that changed everything. The call that made me walk back into a house where I was never meant to be anything more than background furniture. And walk out holding a secret big enough to rewrite the entire future of my family. But we're not there yet. To get to that moment, you need to understand the people, the lies, and the quiet storms waiting beneath every conversation. And trust me, there were storms. Grandma Lenora never called anyone unless she needed something done properly. She never wasted words. Never repeated herself. Never lied. So when she told me to drive down that weekend, with a voice that sounded too calm to be casual, I packed a bag and drove straight to Brycewood Cove. The moment I pulled into her driveway, I knew something was wrong. She was sitting on the porch, upright, alert. A stack of folders beside her, and a pen tucked into her silver hair like a soldier arming herself. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask how I was. She simply said, "Maya, sit. We don't have much time before someone notices." My heart sank. Not because of fear, but because I suddenly understood. She was preparing for war. And she was choosing me as her weapon. She slid the thick folder across the table. The wind ruffled the pages like they were alive. Inside? Financial records. Rental logs. Bank withdrawals. Maintenance invoices. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Numbers were missing. Receipts were photocopied so many times they were almost blank. Expenses that made no sense. Like a $12,000 emergency pipe replacement at a house built 2 years ago. Or roof inspection fees that matched the cost of luxury weekend trips. And the handwriting on the forms? Slanted. Familiar. Elias's handwriting. My grandmother watched me read every line. Her jaw was tight. Her breathing calm. But her eyes, those sharp, gray eyes, were burning with a quiet fury I'd never seen in her. When I finally looked up, she said, "He's been siphoning money for nearly a year. And your parents know." I froze. Knew? As in, they were ignoring it? She nodded once. They call it ambition. I call it theft. My fingers curled around the pages. My brother had always been the favorite, yes. But this? This was something else. She slid the next folder. Heavier, sealed with a clip. Toward me. Read it. All of it. Inside were a revocable living trust, 9 quitclaim deeds, a schedule of assets, and a notarized declaration naming me, not Elias, as the sole successor trustee and full beneficiary of every property she owned. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My grandmother folded her hands calmly. "I'm not rewarding you, Maya. I'm choosing the only person who sees things clearly. And the only one who won't turn these homes into fuel for a fire." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "Grandma, this is... Elias will do what greedy men do." She interrupted. "And your parents will justify it. That's why this stays between us." She leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "When people are used to having everything, the moment they lose control, they turn dangerous." She reached for my hand. And for the first time in my life, I saw a hint of fear on her face. Not fear of Elias. Not fear of my parents. Fear of what would happen if she didn't act now. 2 days later, at exactly 9 a.m., a notary named Ms. Caro arrived at the house. A woman with steel gray hair, a leather briefcase, and a gaze that could slice marble. She checked IDs. She verified signatures. She stamped each page with clean, merciless precision. Every thud of her notary seal sounded like a door locking behind us. When she left, Grandma poured 2 glasses of bourbon. It wasn't even noon. "Now it's done," she said softly. "And now you keep silent." I nodded. Her voice trembled just once when she added, "Remember this, Maya. Paper beats promises. Every single time." We burned the extra copies in the stone fire pit behind her house. The smoke spiraled upward. Slow, eerie, almost ceremonial. And as the ashes lifted into the sky, I felt a strange certainty settle into my bones. One day, this secret would explode. Not because of greed, but because the truth always finds the surface. Like something rising from deep water. Unstoppable. My grandmother died quietly, just after dawn. And the moment she did, The storm began forming again. Slow, quiet, powerful. My parents called. My brother celebrated. Plans were made behind my back. Narratives were crafted. Roles were assigned without me present. Everything was moving toward the day. They would try to take what was no longer theirs. They would try to take what was no longer theirs. They had no idea they were building their own downfall. Brick by brick. With every assumption. Every dismissal. Every whispered plan. And when the day came? When Elias stood up at that inheritance distribution. Grinning wide. Accepting applause. Claiming it all. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel fear. I felt something colder. Something steadier. Something that tasted like destiny. I felt ready. Because I knew what they didn't. Because I held the truth. Because the storm they created was about to turn on them. With a force they never saw coming. Grandma Lenora's funeral was quiet. Too quiet for a woman who had built half of Brycewood Cove with her bare hands and brain. People cried, of course. They cried over memories, over hymns, over the idea of losing the matriarch who'd hosted every holiday and paid for every emergency surgery. But no one cried over the truth. No one knew what she'd really done. Except me. I stood near the back of the chapel while my brother, Elias, delivered a polished eulogy from the front. He talked about legacy, about continuing her vision, about family staying united. The whole time he spoke, my hand stayed on my bag, where a slim, fireproof folder lay hidden between a notebook and a lipstick case. 9 deeds. A trust. A future he thought was his. When the service ended and people spilled into the courtyard for coffee and hugs, my parents approached me with brittle smiles. My mother, Elaine, dabbed her eyes without smudging her mascara. She'd had years of practice. My father, Martin, squeezed my shoulder. "You staying the night?" he asked. "Your room's still there. We'd like to talk tomorrow." I knew that tone. Soft. Reasonable. Dangerous. "I'll stay," I said. Because now the real moves were beginning. The next afternoon, the dining room felt different. The curtains were open, but the light had a harshness to it. The big oak table was cleared. No flowers. No food. Just a stack of papers in the center like a quiet threat. My father sat at the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, a legal pad in front of him. My mother hovered at his shoulder, pretending to fuss with the sugar bowl. She hadn't put any cups out. Elias lounged to one side, long legs stretched out, chair tilted back just enough to show he wasn't taking this too seriously. His phone lay face down beside him, but his fingers drummed restlessly. My younger brother, Jonah, was there too. He leaned against the doorway, half in, half out, arms crossed. Like he wanted to be invisible and present at the same time. "Sit down, Maya," my father said. He pushed a single sheet of paper toward my chair as I dropped into it. I didn't touch it. I just read the title from where I sat. Statement of non-interest in real property assets of the Vance estate. My pulse didn't spike. I'd seen worse tricks on commercial deals. "Just a formality," my father began. "We want to keep everything simple. In the family. Elias will be managing the properties full-time, so it makes sense for him to hold everything outright." My mother's voice slipped in, sugar-sweet and artificial. "We don't want tension later, sweetheart. You're doing so well in your city job, you don't need this headache. This keeps things peaceful." Peaceful. Interesting word for what they were demanding. I glanced at Elias. He smirked and spun a pen between his fingers. "It's nothing personal, May. I've already been handling the tenants. This just avoids all the legal noise. Sign it and we all move on." I slid the document closer. Paragraph after paragraph of legal phrasing, all funneling to one key sentence near the bottom. "Hereby permanently renounces any current or future claim, legal or equitable, to the real estate holdings of the late Lenora Vance. Permanently. My grandmother's voice brushed against my memory. Paper beats promises, every single time. I looked up at my father. No, I said calmly. I'm not signing this. The air changed. The house had always been warm. Soft lamps, sunlight on framed photos, the faint smell of lemon polish. Now it felt like stone. My father's jaw tightened. Maya, don't be difficult. This isn't about taking anything from you. It's about clarity. We're avoiding mess. I'm not the mess, I replied. And I'm not signing away what Grandma intended for me. My mother's eyes glassed over on cue. Your grandmother wanted the family looked after. She would hate seeing us like this, arguing, pushing back. Is that what you want? After everything we've just been through? There it was. The grief card. The guilt. The script. I sat back. Is that what you want? I asked quietly. To decide what she wanted after the fact? Elias let the pen clatter onto the table. You live 2 states away, Maya. You don't even like it here. Why cling to something you'll barely touch? This isn't some movie, you're not being cheated. I put in the work. 4 years. I collected rent, took the calls, handled repairs. Took the money too, from what I've heard, I said, voice still level. His eyes flashed. What did you say? I didn't repeat it. I didn't have to. My father leaned forward, tone dropping to the one he'd used when I was a teenager breaking curfew. We are trying to do this the easy way. Don't force us into the hard way, Maya. We're family. There it was. Not a threat. Not out loud. But close. Close enough. I stood. The chair leg scraped the wood. I'm sorry you're upset, I said. I genuinely am. But I'm not waiving anything. And if you push this, you might not like what you find. My mother reached for my wrist. Maya, please. Your grandmother is barely in the ground. Can you not drag lawyers into this? I didn't mention lawyers, I said. I gently freed my arm. Elias shot to his feet suddenly, face redder than I'd ever seen it. You're making a mistake, he snapped. You want a war over this? Fine. I'll bury you in paperwork. There was a soft movement at the doorway. Jonah stepped fully into the room for the first time, his gaze not on me, but on our father. Maybe we should just give it time, he said slowly. Pushing her right now isn't smart. My father shot him a look. One that said very clearly, stay out of this. But Jonah held his ground. For once. I turned toward the hallway. My father's voice chased after me, sharp as glass. If you walk out now, Maya, don't expect us to clean up the mess later. I paused at the archway. Turned back just enough to meet his eyes. I'm not asking you to clean anything, I said. I'm making sure you don't try to erase what doesn't belong to you. And then I left. The echo of my footsteps down that hallway sounded final. Back in my tiny apartment 2 states away, I spread everything out on my kitchen island. The certified copies of the recorded deeds. The trust. The notarized pages. The county stamps. I'd kept them locked away for years, just like I promised. Now I scanned every document, every seal, every line of legal phrasing. Like I was reading a language I already knew but needed to relearn fluently. I contacted an attorney in my city. Someone who didn't know my family. Someone with no ties to Brycewood Cove. We met in a quiet office with frosted glass and a view of the river. I told him everything. I handed him the folder. He read each page without speaking, the only sounds the hum of the air conditioner and the faint scritch of paper as he turned. Finally, he looked up. If these are all recorded and indexed properly, he said, your grandmother left nothing for a probate court to divide. These properties are yours. Fully. Irrevocably. They can scream, they can posture, they can threaten. But legally? They're too late. Too late. The words settled over me like armor. They might try emotional pressure, he warned. You're the child who doesn't care about family, yes? I gave a small, humorless smile. You've met people like them. I've met hundreds like them, he replied. And people like you? The quiet ones who actually read the documents? There are fewer of you. But you usually win. He helped me organize a clean binder with tabbed sections. He printed fresh certified copies where needed. He gave me a checklist of who to notify if they pushed too far. When I left his office, the city felt different. Sharper. More defined. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was a legal wall. They just didn't know they were going to crash into it. For a while, everything went quiet. Too quiet. My father left a couple of voicemails. Started calm, shifted to annoyed, then to disappointed. My mother sent long messages about healing and moving forward as a unit. Not one of them mentioned the waiver again. Elias texted once. 2 words. Grow up. I didn't reply. Weeks turned to months. I worked. I lived. The world didn't end. And then, one damp, gray morning, a heavy cream-colored envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. My name written in my mother's looping script. I already knew what it was before I slit it open with a butter knife. Inside lay a thick, embossed card. A celebration of legacy. In honor of Lenora Vance. And the future of the Rowan Holdings. The date was set for a Saturday afternoon. Dress code, semi-formal. Below, in my mother's hand. We'll finally be making things official for Elias and the properties. It would mean the world if you were there. No drama. Let's just celebrate Grandma together. Love, Mom. There it was. They thought they'd won. That I'd either given up or been outmaneuvered. A celebration. A coronation. An inheritance distribution wrapped in soft words and champagne. They had no idea they were inviting me to their own undoing. I placed the invitation on the counter beside my grandmother's trust. Then I pulled the fireproof folder from the top shelf of my closet. I opened it. This time there was no fear. Only clarity. I added a color-coded index. A USB drive with digital scans. A brief, clean summary my attorney had helped me draft. Then I zipped everything into a small, hard-shell suitcase. When I snapped the handle upright, it made a sound I can still hear in my sleep. The sound of something locking into place. Not just plastic. Not just metal. But the sound of a woman who has finally decided. Enough. 2 weeks later, I drove back toward Brycewood Cove. The sky was too bright. The ocean glittered like nothing bad could ever happen near it. My phone buzzed with a flood of family messages in the group thread. Pictures of Elias standing in front of houses I legally owned. Captions about our future. Comments from relatives who hadn't texted me in years. They were all so sure. So loud. So certain of the story. But I had the pages. I had the signatures. I had my grandmother's voice echoing in my head. Paper beats promises, Maya. Let them talk. When the time comes, you won't need to shout. And that's how I walked into the house that day. Not as the forgotten daughter, but as the quiet storm they never checked the forecast for. The brother's public claim, my line, Dad, don't you know? The opening of the suitcase, the legal bombshell. And the family tearing apart in real time. By the time I arrived at my parents' home in Brycewood Cove, the street looked like the pre-show of a parade. Cars lined both sides. People dressed in pastel colors milled around the yard. A white rental tent had been erected behind the house with tables of finger food and floral centerpieces. This wasn't a family gathering. It was a celebration, No, a coronation. Their golden boy was about to be crowned. My mother spotted me first. Her smile stretched too wide, her arms already open. Maya. You came, she cried, hugging me hard enough to bruise. My father followed, gripping my shoulder like a man clinging to hope. We're glad you're here, he said, eyes darting to the suitcase I rolled behind me. Suspicion flickered there. Quick, sharp, and instantly buried. Elias appeared on the porch, flanked by his fiancée, Kara, both holding champagne flutes, both positively glowing. He raised his glass at me, mocking. Well, Elias announced, look who decided not to hide this time. Kara giggled beside him. My mother gently shushed her, but her eyes were shining with pride. The house was filled wall-to-wall with people. Cousins, neighbors, tenants, and the family attorney, Mr. Daltrey, standing smugly by the mantel. A large, printed board with property photos leaned against the fireplace. Rowan Holdings, a new era. Cute. Very cute. I parked my suitcase in the living room. Dead center, in plain view. And waited. The chatter quieted when Elias stepped forward. He looked like he'd practiced this speech in the mirror. Probably had. He raised his glass high. Thank you all for being here today, he began, voice booming. Grandma's legacy means everything to us. And today, we officially continue that legacy through me. People clapped. Someone even whistled. Kara dabbed at tears like this was a proposal. My mother clasped her hands like a woman witnessing her child receive a Nobel Prize. Elias pushed forward. As of this week, all 9 properties, every home Grandma worked so hard for, are formally under my management and control. Cheers erupted again. I watched calmly, hands resting on the suitcase handle. And, Elias added, I want to thank my parents for trusting me with something so important. I promised to grow this family business like Grandma would have wanted. I let the applause swell. Let it climb. Let it bounce off the walls. Then I stepped forward. Wheeled the suitcase right to the center coffee table. Clicked open the latches. Snap. Snap. Every head turned. Every breath caught. Elias froze with his champagne halfway to his lips. My mother's smile faltered. My father stiffened like someone had just cut every wire inside him. I slowly lifted out the first document. A quitclaim deed. Not the copy. The original. County seal glinting under the chandelier. I placed it flat on the table. Then I lifted the second. Then the third. Then all 9. The trust binder went on top. Thick, tabbed, highlighted, notarized. The room fell silent. Utterly. Absolutely. Painfully silent. Then I said it. The line that would go down in my family history like a lightning strike. Dad, I murmured softly. My voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. Don't you know? My father swallowed hard. What is this? He managed. I turned the first deed toward him. Toward everyone. Grandma transferred ownership 3 years ago, I said. Legally. Irrevocably. With the county. With a notary. With witnesses. I am the successor trustee. And I am the sole owner of every property you're celebrating today. Elias barked a laugh. A loud, panicked, hysterical laugh. You're insane, he said. She was sick. She didn't understand anything. But he didn't finish. Because Mr. Daltrey, the attorney, stepped forward slowly. His face draining of color as he flipped through the documents. Stamped signatures. Recorded dates. Witness lines. County indexing. Finally he looked up, eyes wide. These are legitimate, he said. Every deed is recorded under Maya Rowan. The trust is valid. There is nothing left for the estate to distribute. The room exploded, but not with applause this time. Not even close. My mother gasped and covered her mouth. My father went sheet white, hands trembling as he clutched the back of a chair. Elias lunged for the documents. I jerked them back before he touched them. "Don't," I said quietly. He glared at me. Eyes dark, wild, wounded. "You lied," he snarled. "You let us plan everything. You let us think." "I let you assume," I cut in. "There's a difference." Kara set her champagne down so hard the glass cracked. She whispered something to Elias. Furious, sharp. And he ignored her. My father finally found his voice. "Maya." His lips trembled. We didn't know. She never told us. She never. She didn't trust you," I said simply. He flinched. My mother burst into tears. "You took advantage of her vulnerability," she cried. "She didn't know what she was signing." Mr. Daltrey shook his head sharply. "These signatures are from before her health declined," he said. "And this notary, Caro, is highly reputable. This wasn't confusion. This was intention." Gasps rippled around the room. My father whispered, defeated. "She chose you." Elias slammed his fist into the wall. "This isn't happening. This is not happening." He lunged again, but this time Jonah stepped between us. And the room froze. Because quiet, invisible Jonah had never stood up to Elias in his life. But now? His voice was steady. "Back off," Jonah said. "Grandma asked me to drive her the day she signed these. I was there. She knew exactly what she was doing." My mother staggered. My father sat down heavily. Kara stepped away from Elias as if he was suddenly radioactive. The family attorney cleared his throat. "In the eyes of the law," he said quietly, "this discussion is already over." Elias made a sound. Not a word. Not a scream. Something primal. He looked at the documents. Then at me. "This is war," he hissed. I picked up the trust binder, closed it carefully. "I didn't come for war," I said. "I came for truth." And then the last blow landed. Kara removed her engagement ring and set it gently on the table beside the broken champagne glass. She whispered, "I won't marry a liar," and walked straight out the door. The screen slammed behind her. No one followed. Not even Elias. Especially not Elias. The caterers froze in the doorway, unsure if they should serve shrimp or call the police. My mother sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. My father went to his knees. Genuinely crying. Hands reaching out toward me. "Maya. Please. We can fix this. We can make this right for your brother. Just give us time." I stepped back. "No," I said softly. Mom's mascara streaked down her cheeks. "How can you do this to us?" "I didn't do anything to you," I replied. "Grandma did this for me. And you tried to erase it." Jonah stood beside me. Taller, stronger, calmer than I'd ever seen him. Elias broke. Truly broke. Rage shattering into something smaller, bitter, defeated. "You'll regret this," he whispered. I met his eyes. "No," I said. "Regret is for people who lie." I honored her. "You tried to bury her wishes before she was even cold." Then I closed the suitcase. The click echoed across the room. Final. Undeniable. Irreversible. The storm had arrived. Just not the one they thought they controlled. People talk about family fights as if they end the moment someone slams a door. They don't. They decay. They rot slowly from the inside out. And that's exactly what happened after the day I opened my suitcase and said the quiet truth out loud. "Dad, don't you know? My family knew nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not about the trust. Not about the deeds. Not about the years of theft they'd been too in love with Elias to see. And after the truth came out, everything they'd built. The illusion, the pride, the favoritism, the hierarchy, crumbled in slow motion. The fallout hit him first. Within 10 days, every lease he'd managed, every vendor account, every maintenance contract he'd inflated, every hidden expense he'd funneled to himself. All of it unraveled. The county and IRS sent audit notices faster than he could open them. Turns out that when someone siphons money from rental properties and labels luxury weekends as roof inspections, the government eventually knocks hard. He tried to get ahead of it, but the numbers didn't lie. The paper trail was undeniable. His accounts were frozen. His truck was repossessed. His credit cards shut down. And when Kara mailed back the engagement ring in a small, padded envelope with no note, he shattered. He moved into a cramped studio apartment above a liquor store on Galloway Street, and he took a job selling used cars. Every month, when he sees my name on county records, something in him burns hotter. But he can't put out a fire he started himself. The irony? The properties he thought would make him powerful are the same ones that will financially haunt him for years. Every time he drives past one, he slows down, as if he still thinks he owns the land beneath his tires. And then he speeds off the moment he spots my management sign. Because nothing terrifies a man who thrives on entitlement like undeniable, irreversible proof that he has no power over you. It took 1 month. Just one. For their world to collapse under the weight of a truth they pretended didn't exist. The big house in Brisewood Cove? Gone. Sold off within 30 days. The boats? Sold. My mother's designer jewelry? Auctioned. My father's retirement plan? Shredded. They moved into a 2-bedroom condo overlooking a parking lot. A far cry from the bay views and lush lawns they once flaunted in holiday photos. Their voices grew smaller after that. Their shoulders heavier. My mother took a part-time job at a boutique to afford groceries. My father resigned early from his firm when the stress made his blood pressure spike. They stopped hosting family dinners. Stopped sending out Christmas cards. Stopped pretending. Funny how the people who said I didn't need anything were the ones who ended up losing everything they depended on. My quiet brother became the bridge I never expected. He texted me every few weeks. Not demanding. Not lecturing. Just checking in. He never asked for money. Never asked for favors. Just peace. The kind of person Grandma would have smiled at and said, "You see the truth quietly. That's rare." He's the only one whose messages I still answer. The only one who stood between me and Elias that day. The only one who understood. Some things are bigger than blood. Some things are bigger than loyalty. Some things are simply right. I returned to my life 2 states away. My small condo in North Lake City felt warmer than ever. My balcony plants bloomed beautifully. Not neglected, not forgotten. The rental income covered my mortgage and still left enough to invest, save, expand. I hired a local, women-run management firm that actually returned calls. Tenant satisfaction climbed. No more fake roof repairs. No more siphoning. No more games. And I bought 2 more properties. Smaller ones, yes. But fully mine from day one. I built the life people said I didn't need. The life they said I wasn't supposed to want. The life they assumed would fall apart without their approval. But peace doesn't require permission. It requires freedom. The last voicemail I ever received from my mother arrived right before Christmas. Her voice was trembling. "Maya, sweetheart, please come home for the holidays. Your father hasn't been himself. We miss you. We love you. Please." I listened once. Then I deleted it. Then I blocked her number. I didn't feel cruel. I felt honest. Because the truth is simple. You can forgive people and never let them into your life again. You can grieve what should have been and still walk away from what was. You can love the memory of a family and still choose yourself over their entitlement. Every document my grandmother left me sits on the top shelf of my closet. The trust, the deeds, the notarized seals. A legacy bound by ink and intention. I don't open the folder often. I don't need to. Because everything it represents is already mine. My peace. My independence. My life built with quiet truth instead of loud lies. People think storms destroy everything in their path. But some storms? Some storms reveal exactly what's been weak all along. Some nights, when the city glows beneath my balcony, I think about the little girl I used to be. The one who begged for math tutoring while her brother got new gear. The one who lived in someone else's shadow. The one who believed silence meant safety. But that girl grew into someone her family never expected. A woman who spoke softly and still shook the room. A woman who walked away and never looked back. A woman who understood what my grandmother taught me on her porch years before. Paper beats promise every single time. And peace? Peace beats family. When family tries to bury the truth. So if you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the peace you built yourself, you already know the truth behind my smile. When my brother claimed everything that day. And you already know why I looked my father in the eyes and said, "Dad, don't you know?" Please click the subscribe button, like, share and comment. This will encourage me to make more interesting stories. Also let's know where you are watching from. Thank you and see you in the next story.